Every year, the Rainin J's pick every game of the regular season, the original crew from this Locked On Celtics podcast. We're doing it again. This is the pregame show on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Be ever ready. Recognize the city of champs. Boston, baby, we do what you can't. Locked on number 18, Tatum and Brown, J team, step back. We gon' wet that and slay teams. Of course, the Celtics, who else could it be? Screaming like KG with the Larry O.B. Corrales above average, assessing the team status. Best daily pod, no cap salary matching. Clutch like Bird the DJ, keep John on replay. Prime time, dapping up the truth on the sideline. Rainin J's how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners. B.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast. Thank you so much for making this show part of your daily routine. It's a Monday through Friday podcast. It's free, it's daily, and on weeks like this where there's a Friday night game, bonus podcasts. So you get 6 podcasts this week. Catch the show everywhere podcasts exist, even on YouTube, especially on YouTube. And hop into the comment section there. That's a great way to get in touch with the show. Let me know what you think. I'm John Corrales. I used to play a long time ago. Now I'm a beat writer covering the Celtics for Boston Sports Journal. By the way, subscribe to Boston Sports Journal. Use the code Celtics23. You're going to get 20% off an annual subscription. Read my stuff there. It's kind of like a hand-in-hand podcast, my written stuff. It's all part of some, I think, pretty decent Celtics content. Today's show is the pre-show to picking every game of the regular season. I got the Rainin J's with me, Jay King, Sam Packard, Sam Jam Packard. People who've been listening to the show for a long time know that's the crew that started this podcast. This podcast began as the Rainin J's podcast with me and Jay. Jam came on board. They separated, went to The Athletic. The Athletic killed most of their team podcasts. So now those guys are on Still Potable, which they're doing on Patreon. Go check them out there. If you want to pay for a few podcasts there, support those guys. That wouldn't be a bad idea. So let's just get to it. This show is a sort of second preview for the season. Me, Sam, Jay, before we go over to their feed to start picking every game, we start setting the tone here for this Celtics regular season. The boys are back. Immediately look up and see Jam Packard with like the big bug out eyes. How you boys doing? Been a minute since we've been podcasting together. How you liking your new still potable home? It's all going well?
Other than having to see Packard more often.
Every day?
Yeah. I've seen a lot of Packard. Even when I'm not there in person, I see his face, and that's it's difficult.
Jay's approach to podcasting has changed dramatically over the past, I would say, 3 weeks. Now like he's all of a sudden into podcasting. He's all about creating content. It's a totally new side of him that part of me is upsetting because I have to see him every day. But then part of me is like, oh, you do have a strong work ethic, Jay. Interesting.
Yeah, I never really guessed that's a new element to Jay King. All right, so I've explained this before in the intro, but we'll say it again. It's Still Potable, available on Patreon. You see all of our Twitter handles there. You can follow it. If you don't follow these two guys by now, you should. And they kind of, I don't want to say started a new venture. You've continued your venture elsewhere and are doing your podcast on Patreon. So
we've migrated.
Sure.
We're like podcasting nomads.
You are growing just like the Celtics are growing, and you have adjusted just like the Celtics have adjusted. And hopefully you find the success that I believe the Celtics are going to have this season. So this show serves as kind of like a pre-show, a little preview, a little let's talk about the season, how we see it. And then on the Still Potable feed, you will get our annual Predict Every Game podcast that everybody looks forward to. I've gotten mailbag questions about, hey, you guys going to do this or what? People tweeting me about
it.
It's
so funny because it really is the dumbest thing we do.
It's an insane concept, but we do it, and it's just kind of become a thing that we do. So let's kind of set the stage because I feel like I'm going to be predicting a lot of wins this year. It may be, when we count them all up, we might be getting to 60 wins for me. How are you guys feeling, starting with Jay? How are you guys feeling about this season? Overly positive, guarded? What are you feeling?
I think they are going to be awesome.
Yeah.
This team, I mean, it's obvious right away that Porzingis and Holiday are going to be great basketball fits. But I think on top of that, like every other thing that you'd want to see, they've showed so far. Joe Mazzulla came back, and it's clear that he reflected on everything he did last year and has changed a bunch of stuff and is ready to take a coaching leap, I think, after his first year. There's a lot of stuff that still has to be determined, but based on the way he's structuring practices, based on the way he's changed the culture, based on just how comfortable he seems with the media even. He dropped his first F-bomb today.
That's
in front of the media, and then
monumental.
Explained it by saying that he decided, F it, I'm going to say F it.
Oh, now I got to bleep this out. This is a family show, Jay.
I knew that was coming.
I almost asked too. Not bad.
Now I've got to edit this out and bleep. Fine.
That's on me. But I just think so. The Mazzulla piece is there, and then like just the mindset of the team, and I think a lot of it is because of Mazzulla's changes. It just seems like it's in a really good place right now, and that can change during a long season. Things can go wrong, things can be derailed, but it just seems right now like this team is in a really good place in a lot of different ways.
Sam, from your perspective as a professional sports fan, how are you feeling?
I'm incredibly hyped up, and I would say too hyped up. And it comes down to like just watching the preseason. Chris Taps, as I'm going to try to get going. I think Taps is a good nickname for him. We're starting that here right now.
Taparoo.
Yeah, Taparoo. He fits so well in the offense, and when he's involved in a pick and roll as the screener, they just command so much attention. And even when they did some of this where it's just like setting pin down screens for Jaylen from Kristaps, the 2-man game they can do there, just I think like the offense when he's on the court is going to be so dynamic that they're going to be unstoppable. With that being said, before last season, Kristaps Porzingis has never really been a healthy individual. And so I can feel all this hype and excitement brewing for Taps, young Taps, as most people are calling him. But like every time he jumped in the preseason, I would get a little bit of anxiety because like he's such a tall man. And as everyone saw on the internet, he's like 3 feet taller than J. King. He makes J. King look like a child.
Such a misleading photo.
And so
Poppycock.
He's very, very tall. And so I just get like this nervousness of like, okay, I think they're going to be great when he's on the court. How often is he actually going to be on the court?
I look, I get it. And it's always a concern especially with a guy that size. But I feel like one element of the Celtics offense with him is that they don't need him to do a lot of the things that have put him in that position to get hurt, where he's not doing the up fakes and drives as much as he would. He's not creating off the dribble. I don't know about you guys. I haven't seen him create from the perimeter at all this preseason. It's all of his offense has basically become off of picks, catching maybe like a one dribble here or there, but I haven't seen him trying to drive and drive the lane or anything like that. It's pick and roll, pick and pop, catch and just one dribble or shoot or whatever. So I'm hoping that means less chance of him getting hurt. And I think they can, over the course of the regular season, they can stagger the back-to-back, Al takes game 1 off, Porzingis takes game 2 off or something like that. I think that's something that they can work on, but maybe a little bit more Luke Cornett in some of these games against the Charlottes of the world. So it's always a concern. It's always a concern, but maybe the Celtics, kind of like Malcolm Brogdon last year, who made it through the regular season fine, maybe they can limit him enough where he's not as much of an injury risk. So We'll get back to it with Jay and Sam in just a second. First, today's show is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is daily fantasy, fun daily fantasy, easy daily fantasy that you want to play because it's you against the projections. Let's fire up PrizePicks right now and just go to the NBA page. I'm recording this before the Warriors take on the Suns. You can go just straight on points for Kevin Durant, over, under, more or less than 22 points. I can pick more than 22 points for him. You can go points in the first 6 minutes. Devin Booker, 4.5, more or less than that. So you can go to prizepicks.com. You pick 2 to 6 players. If you get everything right, you can get yourself up to 25 times your money. So it's a real fun way to enjoy sports and play daily fantasy. So check it out. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use the code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Wow. What a great deal over there. I've had people come up to me at the Garden and say, thank you for turning me on to PrizePicks. They love it that much. Super easy, super quick to get your money when you win. PrizePicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. It's daily fantasy sports made easy. I couldn't recommend it highly enough. Thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. One last chance here. Go check out the Locked On Ultimate NBA Season Preview, 6-episode series with all 30 Locked On team hosts. From contenders to tankers, it's an in-depth look at the biggest storylines heading into the season, which has begun. Now the Celtics season begins on Wednesday night. I was on a contender show, which was recorded before the Jrue Holiday trade. There's an addendum at the end of that podcast where we discuss the Jrue Holiday trade, but the rest of the discussion is pretty good. So check that out wherever you get your podcast. Let's get back into this conversation with the Rainin J's.
He's also gotten a lot better at caring for his body over the years. That's one thing that really goes into it. When a guy gets to be 27, 28 years old, and a lot of the players that Brad Stevens targets seem to be right in their prime, like Derek White, and Kristaps, and Jrue Holiday. He's 33, but just takes great care of his body. Like, these guys have learned how to be professionals in a way that they didn't realize earlier in their careers. And so that's a big piece of it too. Kristaps believes that's part of what kept him healthy last season. We'll see if it's the case. But I think for a lot of guys, like, just the way you approach every single day is different by the time you're that age than it was when you're 19, 20, living in the United States for the first time and being like a superstar for the Knicks out of nowhere.
Living in the United States for the first time, living in New York City as a young NBA high-profile star. I'm sure when he was talking about being young and having fun, that, being young in New York City means like you get to do a lot. So I'm sure he wasn't taking care of his body at all. So, okay, it's a different time. I think one thing that makes me so optimistic is the attitude that everybody has. It's been fairly businesslike. We haven't seen any real goofiness, for lack of a better term, without Grant Williams there.
But you need some goofiness, right?
Sure. And maybe like you see that.
So.
Or else, Jam, what are we doing here?
What am I doing?
But I think obviously there's some, like, they, hit the football, that we didn't see, but they, posted on their Twitter. I think for preseason, the level of focus seemed to be pretty exceptional. The guys were very focused on the game plan, let's say. Joe Mazzulla's plan was very well accepted. You hear all the guys talking about how they liked the new team first approach. Jaylen Brown on Monday talked about it was really good coaching this preseason. Might have been the best preseason that he's ever had. He liked going over all the situations. So I think mentally, and I think that's been the biggest issue with this team. Mentally, they were never quite where they needed to be to kind of navigate some of the downturns that they were having. It was never an issue of talent. It was an issue of being mentally able to get through things. One thing that gives me a ton of confidence, and I don't know about you guys, but the way they seem to be approaching things mentally, and they haven't hit any adversity yet. So we don't know if that's going to hold, but the way they seem to be approaching things mentally is part of what's really encouraging for me.
The person who I always use as sort of like a thermometer for the Celtics is Al Horford.
Thermometer is usually what people use for something.
Yeah, like thermometer. You're just saying Al Horford's
he tells us their temperature.
Oh, I see.
That is a thermometer.
That's a thermometer, correct?
It's not a measurement of pressure, which would be a barometer.
And he always kind of what he's saying about the team gives a lot of insight a lot of the time. Like, remember when they turned things around 2 years ago during Ime season, and they beat a lot of teams at first, like really bad teams.
Another bleep.
Yeah, my bad. I can't stop myself. Cannot stop.
I'm just going to start writing these down. Okay, yeah, so they beat a lot of crappy teams. Very easy to edit on the fly, Jay.
So Al said, it doesn't matter who we're beating, it's the way we're playing, and we are playing a new brand of basketball. And that was as real as it got at the time. So even when things are going well, sometimes Al will be the one to say, you know what, like, we could do things better. We're winning games right now, but I'm not in love with what's going on right now. Al is so excited. Al is jacked up. Al is over the hill about the way that the Celtics have come back and approached the start of this season. So I think you can usually trust Al in his judgment on that stuff because he's about the right stuff. He cares about the right stuff. He's not just worried about like, oh, did tonight's preseason game go well? He's like, how are my 15 teammates coming and working on a daily basis?
How are my 16 fellow co-captains?
Yeah, exactly. So like that should give people a lot of confidence that Al is so excited about the way the Celtics are working. He said it was the best preseason that he's ever seen in Boston.
What does that even mean?
Like just people coming back, the work they were putting in before training camp, everyone being around, the approach that they had. So
has any player ever been like, this was a tough preseason and an even worse?
No, but you don't have to go the other way though. You don't have to be like, this was amazing, this was awesome. Joe has changed so much. Joe has implemented cultural changes that are really important. You don't have to do that. And
it's you can get through and be like, hey, it's we're focused at on the task at hand, blah blah blah, whatever little cliches you can lean on. You don't have to say this is the best. And you got two people now saying this is the best preseason we've ever had, and other people kind of saying similar stuff. So very easy to get swept up in this, and I don't know. We're gonna hit adversity at some point this season. We're gonna see adversity at some point this season. The question is about the Celtics. Are they prepared to get through it? And I just look at these guys. I feel like, first of all, Jaylen is probably in a much more comfortable place now that this contract is all set. I feel like Jayson, with his post work with Sam Cassell, is preparing to unlock an element of his game. I think like we've said, the fit for Porzingis and Holiday is great. Derek White seems to be getting better.
Well, we haven't even really talked about Holiday yet, and I think that's like a major source of, I guess, comfort for Celtics fans. Like, I think Jay and I had 17 different podcasts when the trade went down, but then like in the preseason, we haven't talked about Drew Holiday, guy who's won a championship, veteran point guard who everyone in the league seems to respect, and he's just kind of, I don't want to say he's an afterthought, but him and Derek White just have like, I feel like the preseason hasn't been about them at all. And just like, it's wild that those two guys they're obviously going to be in the starting lineup, but like they're kind of play this secondary role. And both of them, I just see as extremely stabilizing forces. And I think we got some comments recently about Derek White's vocal leadership, which was surprising for me to hear, because I don't really think of Derek White that way. But I do think there was some kind of unsureness about this roster when they traded Smart, but like bringing in Holiday, who's just like seems like one of the most solid people there is. He's like, I think not the most vocal of leaders out there, but just like in terms of stability, in terms of consistency, I think he's going to be a major force. And it's kind of wild with this team where he's just like, they traded for him. We talked about it in the trade, but we really haven't like done a lot of Drew Holiday breakdowns since then.
It's a very boring team.
That's why they need to sign Blake Griffin. They need to get someone in here.
And I mean that in a good way. Like, there aren't going to be locker room issues. There's not going to be, like, I don't think anyone will be ripping the team apart if they lose a few games in a row. And I think sometimes you need that. I think sometimes Marcus Smart doing that really helped. But this is going to be like a very steady, business-like, not super entertaining off in like quotes or anything like that type of team. And I don't think that was Brad's priority when he assembled the roster, but I also don't think he minds that the team is just like very steady, consistent guys. That's sort of something that he values.
He's a very steady and consistent guy himself. So that's what he got. And that's what they need. That's what they needed, because last season, the season before, it's the lack of steadiness and consistency that's hurt them. It's their, you guys talked about it. I listening to your podcast the other day, the free one, where you're talking about they didn't have the ability to pull out of things fast enough. Everybody's going to go through 2-3 game losing streaks. It's gonna happen. It's the same. It's the schedule sized version of giving up a 10-2 run in a game. The question is, are you going to make that defensive stop? Are you going to hit that big bucket to keep those runs in check and keep you in the game whenever the other team makes a run? Are you going to be able to win the game that snaps the streak at 3, and you can build some momentum and now win 2 or 3 games in a row, rather than extend it to 4, 5, 6 games? That's the mental part. That's where we haven't seen it in practice. But what you're talking about, this boring steadiness that they have, that's kind of what you want. You just want a team that's going to be glass-eyed, stone-faced, marching just straight through the competition, being like, doesn't matter if you're, the Hornets or the Rockets, or if you're the Bucks or the Nuggets. We're just going to keep on marching forward and playing the same style of basketball. I don't know if they're there, but this is the closest I've seen them to being there. And, maybe it took some losing, maybe it took some contracts to get settled, maybe it took a little bit of everything, but this is the closest I've seen them to understanding, when they talk about the journey and the process, that they are actually like talking meaningfully about it and not just saying words.
And that's a change. Even focusing on the process is a change from last year. Last year they came in and it was, let's get back to the finals. Let's win a championship this time. It was about the result.
Yeah.
And that's something Joe, I think it bothered Joe throughout the season that it was like that. I think that's something he realized maybe last season, but certainly after the season, that he needed to change and put more of a focus on the day-to-day so that they didn't skip steps and that they didn't lose out on the growth that they needed. And so you're seeing him put his imprint on the team in a way that he was never able to do last year, because he took over so late in the game, because he didn't really have a time to map things out, because the team was kind of already set in its ways and was very, like, if he had changed things in a significant way last year, guys would have been pissed because they believed in what Ime was doing.
Mm-hmm.
But now Joe can just do what he wants. And you've seen a lot of changes, and that's one of them, just the focus is different now, and it's not as results oriented as it was last year. And I don't know how much that matters, but it's definitely in line with Brad Stevens' philosophy. And
it is Brad
it's
Stevens'
more
philosophy.
authentic to what Joe wants to be.
Joe is just running the exact Brad Stevens playbook. The taking it one day at a time, incremental progress, process over results. Can't get too high, you can't get too low. Like this is just like I was gonna make a Star Wars like analogy, but I don't know if it makes any sense. John, you have to correct me. It's like feels like Obi-Wan Kenobi and Luke Skywalker. Like Brad has just taught him all of the Bradisms. He's molded him into a true Kaizen warrior, and now he's sent him out on his own. But it's all the same stuff Brad was doing when he was the coach of the team. Like, it doesn't feel like obviously it's an adjustment from Ime and kind of his more harsh approach, and I think it was difficult to implement last year. But I don't think Joe's doing anything radically different than what we saw when Brad was in charge.
I like that analogy, because Luke Skywalker was kind of thrust into things as a Jedi, and it didn't kind of go well at first, and then he came back. Next time we saw him, he was making the deal with Jabba the Hutt, and he had the whole
stopped chewing bubble gum.
Yeah. So it was he had adjusted. Good. This is the part what
of podcasting with you that I miss the most. Random references that I don't understand at all.
Oh yeah, this is the best, because
Simpsons references, Star Wars. This is Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
No, this is The Simpsons, bro.
This is Star Wars, right? That's going to be the clip. That's going to be the promo clip. Okay, so we're going to go predict all of the games on your feed. But we can't leave here without making some predictions. So let's start with, where do you think the Celtics offense and defense will end up ranked in the NBA at the end of the season? Jay.
They'll both be top 5. They'll both be top 3.
Okay.
They were second in both last year. So saying they'll be top 3 in both is not a huge jump.
Well, no,
they'll finish second in offense, second in defense.
Okay.
Again, second year in a row. Sam?
First in offense, second in defense, behind the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Ooh. All right, fine. I'll say they'll be. Give me the Aces. Number one in both. I think they have the strong potential to be tops in both. And obviously, you guys are both saying top 3, top 2. So we're not that far off. I feel like they have the personnel to get a lot of steals, to put teams on their heels, and to really kind of be disruptive. So I definitely think they're going to have the best offense in the league. I think they're going to be a ridiculous offense. The defense will be where I'm just going to say first, just to be different. I think they have the strong potential to be there, though, anywhere in the top 3.
How much will that change depending on how much Kristaps rests, depending on how many minutes they play to Luke Cornett or Neemias Queta?
Yeah.
Like how does that change your outlook on where they'll finish?
I think that's going to happen like infrequently enough where it shouldn't have too much of an impact, because all of their competition is going to have games where they are also resting. So I don't think the Celtics are going to be outliers when it comes to how much Porzingis and Horford and those guys rest. And they're still going to have Derek White and Drew Holiday for most of the time there. And I think an underrated element is Jayson Tatum's ability to kind of help down low, block some shots, be a rim protector.
And to carry any 4 people to a great net rating.
Yes, that's right.
Did you hear he added 12 pounds of muscle in the offseason?
Yes. That's a big, it's a big thing there. No, I don't think it's going to have that big of an impact. I got to mention that at least once a show, right? postseason awards. Who wins postseason awards for the Celtics this year? Does Joe Mazzulla get any love for Coach of the Year? No. Okay, that's fine. I don't think
no, because the teams that are expected to be great, those coaches typically don't win the award. It's the teams,
unless the Celtics win 65 games and look dominant.
This is the award that is decided by how dumb the media is before the season and how wrong we are on teams before the season, and whoever we are most wrong on before the season, that's the coach that wins the award. Eric Spoelstra has never won it. He's been the best coach for a decade, never won it.
Yeah.
But no, Joe, if they have a really good season, he'll finish near the top, though.
Okay. MVP, Jayson Tatum. What do you
think? Lock it in.
Lock it in, huh?
They're going to have the best record in the NBA. Jokic is going to, take some time off like he did last year. Embiid's going to completely crumble because he's Joel Embiid, and he's now sponsors Skechers, which is just a loser shoe company. Giannis might give him a run, but I think the Bucks are going to stumble a little bit, and so they're not going to have as good a record. I think this is the year Tatum wins the MVP.
And look, if he can play with his back to the basket the way Sam Cassell is saying he can play with his back to the basket, then he really has a chance. That's the one element, that bully ball element. That's the one element that's been missing. And Tatum, I think Tatum is a couple of minor tweaks, shot selection type of things away from averaging 34 points a game versus 30. And that's MVP level stuff. He's at 30. I think just a little bit more selective on the 3-point shooting, a little bit more down low, draw a couple more free throws. It's just like a couple of shots go differently. You can get yourself to 34 pretty easily, I think, for Jayson Tatum. So
I don't know if his points per game is going to go up, but I feel like his assists and efficiency will go up. And so I think it's hard when you bring in a guy like Kristaps, who I feel like is going to be a kind of high volume guy, for Tatum to get to that many points. But I just think he's still going to be around 30, probably with more assists and better efficiency. And this is going to be this is the best we've ever seen Tatum. The Celtics are the number 1 seed. Give him the MVP.
For him to win MVP, he has to be the best that he's ever been, because there was a gap last year between the top 3 candidates, who were Giannis, Jokic, and Embiid, and everybody else. And Tatum was in that next tier behind those guys, but it was significantly behind. And the difference to me is just a consistency piece. Nikola Jokic, except for that 1 month when he was just playing no defense, what you're going to get from him every single night. He's going to make his teammates a lot better. He shoots between 50 and 70% almost every single night. Hardly ever shoots less than 50% from the field. And Tatum just has nights where it's not there. And maybe working in the post is a way to counteract that. So it's not as much jumpers or layups. It's let me have a little less variance in my game. Let me add this post stuff in. Let me get a couple more free throws. Let me get some easier buckets. But he does have to make a substantial jump to reach that level. And I'm not saying it won't happen. But those other guys for the full season were just significantly better than he was.
Yeah.
And I think also last year, to me, he was amazing for the first 20 or 25 games. Just awesome. That was the best basketball maybe that he's ever played. He came back from the All-Star break and played no defense for a while and just wasn't playing the right brand of basketball. So he has to eliminate that too. Again, that speaks to the consistency piece. And he had a great season. He was awesome. But just got to do it all the time.
That's true. I'm gonna bet against Tatum winning the MVP, but I think he'll finish in the top 3. Only because it's just so hard to win the MVP. But I'm not gonna. It's possible. It's certainly possible that he's gonna have an MVP year. Okay, quickly, finally, 6th man of the year. Do the Celtics have anybody in their 6th man that's going to be Sixth Man of the Year. I think those are the only other awards that anybody's going to.
It's going to be Sixth Man of the Year, Al Horford and Peyton Pritchard. Lock it in.
My take is that Al Horford might be the most impactful player who comes off the bench, but he won't come anywhere near a Sixth Man of the Year award.
Doesn't score
just because he doesn't score enough. Guys won't recognize what he does. Andre Iguodala was the best bench player for years and years.
Yeah, and
he was never recognized for it. It's just like you have to score a lot of points. Al Horford's not going to do that.
All right, and then I don't know. That's it. That's it. All defense teams. I think you probably have
Peyton Pritchard.
I don't think he's going to score enough. I think like it was great what he did in the preseason. I don't think he's going to have those same opportunities to put up the same numbers in the regular season. But he was great, and I just don't think he's going to be putting up 17, 18 points a game where people are going to be like, oh my God, and make him most improved. It would be nice. It would be nice, but I just don't think he's going to have the same opportunity, the same shots, the same usage. He had a usage rate in one of these games that was like 35 or something. It was ridiculous. That's not going to be his usage rate for the Celtics.
He won't always be playing with Delano Banton and Lamar Stevens and stuff.
Yeah. And then like all defense, like Derek White, Drew Holiday, all defense. You know, can you get one of these other guys? Can you get Tatum or Brown on the second team all defense? Can you get more than 2 Celtics on all defense? That would be insane.
They'd have to be by far the best defense in the league to get.
They would have to be
maybe even 2. Maybe even 2. Like it's just hard to get more than one guy.
I think they can get 2. I think they can get 2, a first and a second teamer, but yeah, that'll be hard. That'll be hard. All right. Well, you guys want to go predict some games?
I don't want to swear again so that you have to do more work.
Poop.
But I won't. I'll hold off.
I mean, I'm already doing the work, Jay. I'm already doing the work.
I really that up for you, didn't I?
I read another one down. Yep.
I have way too much fun doing stupid stuff.
Thanks, guys. Again, Still Potable is on Patreon. So if you want to support these boys, go support them by subscribing to their podcast. The picks have begun. The picks have begun. We did the first 19 games. We went all the way up to the in-season tournament. We're going to do all season long. We just didn't want to do a 4-hour podcast because that's how it's going to go. And that podcast includes Brian Robb, who is part of the Still Potable team now as well. So it's a fun show. Go check it out over there. We've begun picking the show, so that's on their feed. So if you want to get the picks, we pick every game. If you want to get that, that's on the Still Potable feed. I would love it if you subscribe to the Locked On Celtics feed, because this is where you get free podcasts 5 days a week, sometimes 6 days a week. Hell, sometimes 7 if they play later into the weekend. I'm just going to give you post-game pods. No one's giving you as many podcasts as I am with in-depth coverage, free, all of that stuff. This is the only place to get that level of Celtics coverage. So subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Would love it if you everydayers, you regulars, stick with me. Share the podcast. Spread the word. Let everybody know that the Locked On Celtics podcast is right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.